Hey, Sparky here, and we're going to do the PEEK gear installation for the BBSHD. Now you're going to need the spanner wrench, Allen wrenches all the way to 8mm, crank extractor if you don't have one, the snap ring plier, and of course the Mobil 28 grease for the PEEK gear. So let's get started. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is take off these hose clamps. So with most cranks, you're going to need one of these crank extractor. It basically is a $10 tool that you can take off the cranks. And what you're gonna do is, as you turn it clockwise, this pin right here will push against the bottom bracket spindle and it will force the crank out. So I'm gonna thread this in real quick. You can either use a crescent wrench or use the same 8mm. And what you're gonna do is actually turn this clockwise. So you're pushing against the bottom bracket spindle here. And you'll be able to see the crank pushing away, and it will basically pop out like so. As far as taking this one off, of course, this is the tool that I mentioned. So what you're gonna do is, this is installed clockwise, loosen it. So this is basically the first piece you're gonna take off. The second piece, you're gonna use this 4-prong here. And if I could get in there, same direction counterclockwise to loosen it. Now before I pull this out, I'm gonna take off the chain from the other side. All right, so at this point, you'll probably wanna hold the motor, but of course there are 2 bolts right here that's holding the stabilizer. So what happens if you don't use this, and this is a piece that generally comes with the BBSHD kit. Now, you install it like so. Now this is without the stabilizer. The one that's raised, the pattern-wise, is supposed to dig in and prevents the motor from dropping like this. The problem is, so many times people, tighten it all the way, but it still drops down. Probably the easiest way is to get a hose clamp, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 inch one, and then use another 2 or 3 inch hose clamp and basically keep it up. Or just simply use one of these stabilizer bars. So here's a stabilizer bar. So depending on your bike and setup and the mounting position, you might be able to come across like so. For mine, I wanted to keep it up a little bit higher, and of course that meant I needed to flip this over and use it this way. Here is the BBSHD once it's put together. Instead of the controller that's built inside, you're going to get this 3D printed piece, which doesn't really change anything other than the fact that this cable is basically inside, bypassing the original controller. So what I'm explaining here is basically the same whether you're going to be disassembling a regular BBSHD or not. So to take off these bolts right here, there are 3 on the side. And I'm going to explain to you guys as far as these seals that go in. So 3 bolts come out. Now, make sure you don't lose this, but also this is going to be one of the bolts that you're going to need, actually 2 of them, to take off one of the plate to expose the gear. So this will be really interesting. So far, so good. And I'm going to basically disconnect these. With the HV kit, you're going to get this 3D printed piece that replaces the original controller. Everything matches as far as the wires. So you're going to take it off. There's really no wiring as far as, you know, having to solder or anything. I did recrimp this so I can make it a little shorter. Other than that, it doesn't change. Now, one tricky area I found was there will be globs of these silicone. It's to basically keep the moisture out of place. So to take this off, you want to gently scrape off the gasket or the silicone, and you're going to wiggle this connector out. Just make sure you're careful and not, you know, damage it. On the other side here, to take off the motor, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the same deal. We're gonna take these bolts off. Now this is the side you can probably see that the seal that I made, or the gasket, when I was originally putting the metal gear. And I'll show you guys the difference between that and a PEEK gear along with the original nylon gear. So these 3mm bolts, they're basically the same. So if you accidentally mix them up, there's no issue there. Now, when you first initially take this off, and this is what I mean as far as the gasket, it will likely tear. Don't take a chance. Just get yourself a seal if you don't want to make your own, which is really easy to do. But many vendors online will sell this kit. So it's pretty much, you take it off, you got to put a new one in. Did this about a month ago. I'm already forgetting. Okay, it just pulls out. And when you pull it, you're also pulling on these cables. And that's the reason why there will be gaskets around this area. When I really seal this up, I'm going to put more silicone. I didn't want to do this originally because I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep the metal gear, because I knew it was going to be loud. Again, as it's getting really loud lately. Oh, wow. It's not looking good right now. I see some metal shards, maybe not. Something, okay guys, I'm a little worried right now. And this could explain the reason why it's been so loud. Hopefully this side is not damaged. Now as you can see, it's just, oh, they're just crud. This is the one you don't want to basically damage. Of course, like anything, there are replacement parts. But again, it's really dirty. Probably have a lot of deposit. There are score marks and it feels a little rough. And you have to remember too, it's not necessarily the manufacturer's fault, because I am pushing 4,000 watts into this motor, and you know, it was just one of those, something doesn't sound right, so I need to stop and take things apart. Now, as far as taking this off, it gets interesting, and I'll show you why. So in order to take this off, there's really an easy way. Like I mentioned, this M3 bolt is going to come in handy. If you worked on cars before changing rotors, it's the same idea. You have these little small threaded holes. That's where you're going to put the M3 in. So before I do that, these Phillips bolts, they're ridiculously hard to take off in the beginning. So just keep that in mind right here. All right. Initially, I had to use a large screwdriver. So it may come off, and chances are it won't. Don't try to use like a screwdriver, but I don't like the inside of it already. as you can see, there's just a lot of gum. I'm actually glad I'm taking this apart now. Okay, it should go right in. There we go. You screwed the bolt in, and you want to do this gently. You're not trying to lift up one side at the same time or all at once. Working on this motor, definitely, you want to just take your time. Make sure you don't lose any parts. Careful handling the motor. Okay, so I hear that little click here and there. And again, you're just taking it easy, and it will just pop right out. Where it's stuck is right here. It should come right out soon. There we go. You're gonna have this retaining clip here you're gonna have to take off. It's not too difficult to take off, but it's a little tricky. Okay, there we go. All right, so basically this pops right out where it should. Well, this is giving me a hard time. It's not budging. Take a pair of pliers here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is really disgusting. And in fact, look at the inside here. I literally put this in, oh gosh, not even 100 miles ago. This is not going back inside. It's likely damaged. So just to show you guys the difference between the steel gear, you got the original nylon, and this is the PEEK. PEEK stands for something which I have no idea what it is. It is a thermoplastic that's actually stronger than this nylon. So chances are this is probably one and only gear that you'll need unless you're putting a lot of power into it. But from what I understand, most guys that run this have absolutely no issue and love it, since nylon gear over time, especially if you're using the high voltage kit, you could eventually wear this down where some of these teeth here starts to melt. So the PEEK gear can handle more heat, and of course it's not going to be loud like this metal gear. So with that said, I need to clean the inside of this motor here. As you can see, it's absolutely disgusting, and I don't want to put anything in there until I actually clean it.
5 minutes later.
So I think that's pretty good. This plate that basically holds the gear in place, of course you want to clean it. Make sure there's no debris. So this is something you definitely want to do from time to time, depending on how often you ride and of course how long you want these parts to last. Now, Mobil 28, this is specifically for the PEEK gear. They don't recommend using that for the steel gear. And again, you already saw the damage on my BBSHD. I need to clean this a little better actually before I put everything back together. I actually never opened one of these before. Place this end in gun first. Oh, okay, so that's if you're using the thing, I'm assuming. Oh, look at that. Looks like cranberry sauce. All right, so there's really no way to reseal the cap, but you know, the consistency is like jelly, so you don't have to worry about it. As far as using the PEEK gear and this grease, definitely don't be shy. Wow, it's literally like cranberry blood color. Put it all in the gear. And just for fun here, just want to lather it basically. Bring this over. Indentation side is going to face up because you still need to put the retaining clip. So drop this in and put that in. If I can okay, did that go in? You definitely don't want this to pop out. I almost forgot to put the plate back. This is the reason why you want to take your time. If you were paying attention, yes, I did not put this plate back. Make sure it's nice and clean. And put that in. Okay. Make sure you don't strip it, of course. Nice and tight. It's the last thing you want coming off. Flip it down a little bit. So once the other side of the actual motor goes in, it'll get lubricated. Just to be on the safe side, put a little bit of grease. I'm using some blood of my own. Wipe down a little bit. So here we go. Now again, you got the three-phase wire, and this is the motor. So you just want to take your time and carefully make sure everything lines up. The green, blue, yellow, they'll just go into these holes, and the hall sensor connector there will go into this little rectangular piece right here. Now when you do this, make sure you don't pinch anything. And one reason you want to make sure that all the gaskets, like the silicone, the white stuff, is completely gone, so you can actually align it. All right. So just to show you guys, especially this hall sensor right here, absolutely crucial that comes in straight. Once it's lined up, make sure that the gasket isn't pinched. Look on the opposite side here, and we'll start putting the socket head screws in. I actually didn't look up what the interval is, but something doesn't sound right, not running right. This will be a great time to actually, just take it apart. It doesn't hurt to clean it once in a while and make sure everything is nice and tight. I actually found one of these socket screws that was loose earlier, so put these in. As long as this side is nice and tight and closed, you can obviously hook up the wires and test the motor. Just slightly loose. I'm going to squeeze the connector here gently, and it should be a little bit hard to push in, so it's still coming off easily. So there we go. Whoa! I realized that my controller and everything is actually on the bike, and I'm going to test it by simply just closing the case chance of this not running well is less likely. Okay, there we go. I just want a really good connection. So that's the reason why I'm doing this. This connector should be, it shouldn't be too easy to pull off. But not so tight that squeeze that in a little too hard. There we go. When you close this, you just want to be extra careful. Again, if you have this kit, all 4 wires, actually 5 including this temperature sensor, will just tuck right into this edge. So let's see if we can squeeze that in there without pinching it. And this is where you also need to be careful with the seal. Make sure you're not going to get moisture, and in case you end up riding in the rain for whatever reason, because it will short circuit and fry the board. So some people put silicone and waterproof stuff on top of this after they close everything, which probably wouldn't hurt. All right. Do this side. It's getting dark out already. I don't like this daylight savings time thing. And the seal is, nice and seated. So there it is. Now, since this is a 3D printed thermoplastic, torquing it wise, it's kind of snug. But other than that, that's done. Oh man, so tired tomorrow. Okay, so what we're gonna do is actually pop this in real quick and see how it runs. So, in either case, now with that tightened, I'm going to tighten this first. Whew. Okay. And tighten just the ring here. Now I can tighten this for the stabilizer. All right, so before I put anything else back on, I want to make sure that, let's put this, what we're going to do is connect everything. With that connected, I'm going to probably put the battery over there. I'm going to turn this on. So there you have it. Put the cranks back on, zip tie everything, and yeah, it's all set.